I'm just going to give you guys a quick tutorial on Groff. This will be the first in a series. I'm just going to try and get you guys up and running really quick and get you started with it, alright? So really quickly, I'm just going to go over what Groff is. So if you guys go to the man page for Groff, you'll see, let me make that a bit bigger for you guys. Alright, so you guys will see Groff is basically, it's a GNU implementation for ROF, for nroff and troff. It's free, it's open source, and basically what Groff is meant to be used for is typesetting. So it can be used like LaTeX to make PDFs. It can also be used to make man pages, like this one that we're looking at right here. It has a lot of different uses. Personally, I'm going to focus mostly on PDF rendering, but hopefully later on we'll get to work on making man pages so you guys can make your own documentation and stuff like that. But first off, I'm going to try and get you guys started to basically replace something like LaTeX. Alright, so if you guys look through here, basically a quick rundown of the important ones that you guys need to know is when you guys are running Groff, there are basically a couple flags that are useful. So -m basically allows you to choose the macro set, and macros are basically the idea of like a kind of library basically. If you guys program, basically a nice way to start off, and basically a wrapper to make writing this a lot easier instead of using just base requests for Groff to render onto a document. If that doesn't make sense, don't worry about it, it's not super useful. I'm going to focus on the MS macros. So -ms allows us to use them, and then -T allows us to say what kind of device we're rendering to. And so in this case, we'll be putting it in a PostScript. Actually, we'll just do a PDF to make things easy. So that's how you choose PDF. You can do PostScript. There's a few other ones that I don't really use. You can look at the man page under -T. Find out more. And for other useful ones, let me see here. But those are like the major ones that you guys are going to want to use the most. Okay, and then you're going to say a file. So I have a quick demo file, .ms, and basically when it comes out, it's just going to. So if I just run this, it's just going to print the PDF straight into the terminal. So you guys are going to need to redirect it. So we'll just redirect it to test.pdf, and there we go. And then if I open test, sorry, I'm not a very fast typer, test.pdf, we get a nice little page. All right, so right here we have the title, we have the author. I just wrote this up in a few seconds, so it's not a big deal. And then the first heading. So let's take a look at this file, okay? So if we go, probably not the fast way to do that, but anyways, so what is Groff? We went over that. All right, so I'm just going to give you guys a quick rundown. So right now I'm just going to focus on the MS macros. So first off, let's work on making a heading. Actually, let's talk about the title because it's already here. Actually, let's just remove that. We'll talk about that later. It's not super important. So for our first heading, so this would be like a section in LaTeX, or say for example in Markdown, you could use a hashtag to start it. So that would be like the Markdown version of this, okay? So when you guys are writing it, basically Groff has two different ways of basically how you're going to address the macros. So in the MS macro, to make a new heading, you do .nh and then you put the heading below it. All right. If I just keep adding to this, and then I recompile it, we're going to see that all this stuff is still part of the heading. So it's still going to be bolded. Okay. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to instead start a new paragraph. So to start just a left bounded paragraph, you can do LP. This is a All right, and let's redo that. There you go. Now you can see that it's not capitalized, okay? Or bolded, sorry. All right, so that's how you guys can end a heading. Really quick, just a quick bit more information on the heading. So you can basically make like a subheading, technically not a subheading, but a next level down heading by just doing .nh and then the level. So we can do 2, and then we'll do this is a if we recompile that, you'll see that it has an extra point in front of it, okay? And same as before, we still need to end the headings, or else we will basically get this sort of thing. Now, if you guys noticed just now that these are all new lines, but if you look on here, there's no new lines. These are all just treated as spaces, okay? So now, for example, if I put an extra line here and then added more, let's recompile that, we'll see that it's on a new line. So that's an important thing to note. So you need 2 spaces to act as a new line. So this is a second level heading. I'm just going to go over how to make a subheading. So the big difference between this and a normal heading is that there is no numbers in front of it, okay? So to make a subheading, you do .sh, and then hello world. And if we recompile that, you see hello world is basically treated the same as if I made a new line here. Hope that makes sense to everybody. All right, and you can make subheading, you can make a lower level heading for subheadings, but there's really not, I don't see any point in doing that, but maybe you guys do, I don't know. But big thing about it is that all of this is specific to the MS macros. For now, we're just gonna focus on them because I think they're the easiest ones to get started with, okay? Actually, let's leave one heading for now, okay? So, actually, I guess you guys don't use great key. So now we're gonna focus on the paragraphs. So like I said before, you can make a left-bounded paragraph, which is pretty often used in most things that you guys are writing, unless you're writing an essay or something. So, like I said before, this is a paragraph. I use it because I like it, not because I'm a fast typer. All right, and so here's a paragraph, like I said before. Now, if you want to have an indent at the start, you can change it to PP. You get an indent at the start, all right? So for the most part, I usually just use LP for now. All right, and this would just be the same as starting a new line after a heading in Markdown, all right? Does that make sense to everybody? So right now we have this basically. What is Groff? And then, all right, so this is basically what we have in Markdown. Okay, and so now I'm just gonna really quickly go over quoted paragraphs. They're not super useful, but some of you may find it useful. Basically, so a quoted paragraph basically gives an indent for it, just like PP. But if you look at this, and I add a bit more before it, this is quieted, whatever, same thing. You'll see that it's all indented, okay? So this can be kind of useful. I don't often use this. Often I will just basically set the indentation for a section and end it there. But you can basically start a quoted section. So right now, this is going to basically, the way that you can kind of use this sort of stuff. So basically a lot of this, sorry, I'm rambling a bit. So basically how a lot of this works is when you run a macro, it just runs a bunch of requests, and then those requests are applied to everything after it. So that's why when we run, we have NH, where basically here's a bunch of requests, and then those are all applied to everything that comes after it, and that's why you have to use LP to change it back to normal, okay? So now you can start a block of quoted text basically by doing .qs and .qe. We won't focus on this too much. I'll try not to overwhelm you guys too much with this, but this can be kind of useful if you want an indented spot that also, actually I probably should have, sorry, one of the big things about quoted text, so it indents all of it, but it basically puts it all in the center. So actually let's just gonna put a bunch of filler text in here. Probably should have a faster way to do this for the rest of the tutorials. But if you look at this versus, just to make things simple, I'll just change this back to a paragraph. And then PP. So if you look at this, actually I'll just put this all in one line to make it a bit easier for you guys to read. So if you look at this, the PP section basically, so like I was saying before, so the quoted section, so let's do a .qp, a .pp, just to make things simpler. I just think of this as like quoted paragraph. I don't really quite know what the actual PP is supposed to be, but I just think of it as paragraph, like you would in an essay for some reason. But you can think of it however you want. I'm sure there's a specific way it was written to be like that. But anyways, so if I have a bunch of filler text in the paragraph section, so I'm just gonna call it for now. And then, actually let's just, so if I just put the same text here, you'll see that this basically right here runs to the end of the line and then wraps, versus this QP section, actually, there we go, that's a bit more spacing to make that a bit easier. Now in this QP section, it's actually centered completely, which can be pretty useful. I don't really use this very often, but it can be useful for a bunch of different reasons. I'm sure you guys can think of some of them. Hopefully I'll get some suggestions later on how I could use it, but I don't really use it all that often. All right. So we're going to go into the next one, which is basically which is IP. And this can be used basically to make a list. So let's just recompile that. Then we have this is a list item. All right. And so right now it just looks like it's indented, but actually IP has a lot more extra stuff you can do. So you can basically say what you want to act as basically your bullet. So you could have like 1, and you get a number. You can choose a dash. We'll go into this later, but you can also make a bullet by doing I won't really go into how you do all the special symbols and stuff for now, but I'll go into that a bit later, probably in another tutorial. Maybe by the end of this if I feel like I can go a bit further, but for now I think I'll probably cut this off. All right, so we'll go with a dash, and you can also set the space between that dash and your paragraph. So we'll do, let's just do 2. I think that's usually fine. So 2 basically shortens that up, which can be pretty useful. All right. So a big thing with this is that you will you'll start to realize that I'm trying to think about how to say this. You realize that it continues just like the other ones do. All right. So just like before, you're gonna have to reset back to LP at the end. Okay. So this kind of acts like a little indentation section. There is another way to do indentation that I'll cover a bit later if we have some time. Actually, I can just cover it now because it's pretty useful to be able to indent your list. So say you've got like a list here, and let's just duplicate this a couple of times. Okay, and then, yeah. So you got this list right here, and that should just come up like that. And so say we want to make a sub item for this one. So say we want to make this guy right here a sub item. So what you can do is you can surround that in RS and RE. I'm not really too sure what the R stands for, honestly. I just think of it as a raise. So raise where it is. And the S is for raise start. Not actually raise start, but I think of the S as the start and E. So most of these ones, that's like a section area. So now if I duplicate this, you'll see that it all is just as indented. And then if I add stuff after this, is normal, you'll see that it's back to normal. Okay, so these sections, or if I even just do is not, you'll see that this is reset back to the old indentation. It's kind of hard to see here, but this is back. So this section is back to this level of indentation, if you guys can see that. All right, if that's hard to try, you guys can play around with this for yourself. It's pretty easy to understand once you guys get back used to it. But we can also do the same thing for all of this. So now this should reset this back to normal, and this will all be double the indentation of normal. Okay. Once again, all of that I've shown you right just now is specific to the MS macros. So let me know if you guys want me to keep doing this. I'm basically going to explain how you could do something similar in just a base Groff request, independent of macros. I don't recommend you guys do this everywhere because it will break some macros, but it can be useful to know. You can just set IN to, let's set this to 2, and we're just gonna remove all of this text, right? And so when I do that, you can basically see that it's indented, but the font is just the same. So this basically acted as a continuation. We've just changed the indent. All right, and then everything after this, we'll extend that. This may not be useful. I just find it's often useful to know this if I want to try out a new macro set and I'm not really quite too sure how to do it, but I still want to keep working. So now if I go back to here and I keep typing, basically it's reset back to normal because the indentation is set back to 0. You can actually do just IN and it will reset it back to 0, or reset it back to its previous state. Okay, cool. Let me know if you guys want me to show off the base macro stuff, like the base, sorry, using no macros, using a base Groff request. Let me know if you guys want me to keep showing that off or if it confuses you. If it confuses you, do not worry about it. .in, you don't need to know if you're using the MS macros, okay? So I'm just going to continue on. So we've got our little sub lists. I'm just going to really quickly give you guys a primer on how to change the fonts. So right here, we're just going to go back to normal. Hopefully you guys can see that, hopefully. So right now we basically have just a bit of text. So now I'm just going to go over a quick translation of what this is like in Markdown versus what it is like in Groff. Okay, and Troff, and any other version of Groff. So basically you can set the font by, so in, actually I kind of forget now, I haven't used Markdown in a while. Actually, I should do. Okay, so this is Italic, okay, with 1 star in Markdown. If you guys know Markdown. If you don't know Markdown, it's not really a big deal. But right now that's just stars. So in Groff, what you want to do, this is just the shorthand way to do it. You can do \F, all right? That's how you say change, basically it's how you say to change the font. And then you can do capital I to say italics. And then you have to do the same with either a capital P to basically go back to previous, or you can do empty brackets if that's more your style. You can also surround this in brackets, okay? I don't want to overwhelm you guys too much with this. Okay, so these are basically set to italics, go to previous, okay? Now if you want to set it to bold, in Markdown you'd use 2 stars, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, I'll correct myself later on. And you could just set this to capital B instead of capital I. So B for bold, I for italics, okay? All right. And so for a code block, I believe in Markdown, you just use backticks, right? And to basically say like constant width or code block or something like that. So this is inline code. And so in here, you'd set it to constant width. So CW for constant width. And you see right here, sets that to a constant width, okay? And let me just see if I'm forgetting anything else. Those are pretty much the major ones. Another way you can do this, kind of like how I was saying before with .in. So say for example, like I have a little block that I just want to, sorry, there we go. My X key got stuck there for a bit. So you can also do multiple words to set it all to bold. You can put it before. And all that sort of stuff. You can add extra lines. I'm not really going to go too crazy with that. Another thing you can do, this is another base Groff request, is just FT, sorry. So you do FT and then capital B and then and then FTP. I don't really use this very often. I usually just use the backslash, but this is a way to do it in just base Groff using a quick request. This is pretty useful. Some of the macros have their own sort of thing. So MS has, you could just do .b and then put this in quotes. And it does basically the same thing. I don't really tend to use that too much because I try not to keep many things in quotes. It just makes it a lot easier to diff and all that sort of stuff. If you know what I'm talking about, I feel like you could probably see the advantage of it. If not, it's not really a big deal. I just find either using this, which I honestly don't use that much, or I just end up doing just the base backslashes. So instead of using that, I could just go just like that. There's the issue of like your indentation stuff can be changed, I guess. But yeah, so I end up using stuff like that. Sort of ramble on there for a bit. There's also bold italics. I should probably cover that really quick. So it's basically bold italics. You know bold italics. And let me just see here. Oh, another one, sorry, that I should really cover is comments. So how comments at the start of a line goes, you do dot backslash quote, okay? I try to think of that as like a quote, as like, you know, you'd say something. I don't know. That's just how I try to think of it. Now, if I have, say we've got a bunch of text here, and I want to put a comment at the end, I can just do backslash quote, and then this is, right? And then it doesn't show up. This can be pretty useful. I'm sure you guys can see the use in using comments. Let me know if there's anything that you guys want me to focus on. Okay, so really quickly, we're just going to go back to focusing on the MS macros. I'm going to try and not make this as focused on the MS macros past this point and try to just get you guys a better understanding of Groff in general. But the MS macros, I just think, are the easiest way for people that are used to using Markdown or something like that to kind of get started, you know? All right, so another thing that's useful in the MS macros is you can make boxes. So is a line of text. All right, so we just got a line right there. And then we can do dot B1 for the start of a box, and then dot B2 to basically end the box, okay? So if I full screen that, you guys will see that is a boxed amount of text, and I can basically put whatever I want in between here. So I can do, sometimes the box guys can get pretty confused. Oh, am I missing something here? Okay, I got a bit, oh, sorry. I think you'd want to do, sorry, sometimes I forget so now it's going to be a bit more, here, let's go back to, so yeah, so now it's all going to be a bit more indented and everything, okay? Another thing you can do that can be very useful as well is you can just do BX, I believe, and then just quote this like I was talking about before with the bolded. And basically, so when you're doing this stuff where you're putting it in bold, I guess I should probably try and explain this a bit more, give you guys a better understanding. So not everything needs arguments, but a lot of the ones, the MS ones specifically to stuff like fonts and bolding and underlining, require an argument, and that's how they do it. Otherwise, it's a section sort of thing, like I was just showing you a second ago when we were using this, okay? So we've got this bad boy. Now it's boxed and it's indented, okay? So the box will just specifically follow it versus this can be used to box anything, and you can add extra space to make the box a bit bigger. And this can be really useful. Say for example, if you do a math equation, which I'll probably try and make another video and hopefully release it pretty soon, basically on EQN, which is how you do math in Groff. I won't go too crazy into that right now though. All right, so that's how you do a box. All right, I'll try to make a cheat sheet and post it. Yeah, I'll put in like my information for my account. I'm not too sure. I'll try to put it up pretty soon. There are lots of primers though out there, or a lot of cheat sheet sort of things that people have made. All right, so now we're just going to go into underlining. So .ul is what you use for underlining. This is once again specific to the MS macros. This is text. So I'm not used to typing while I'm used to while other people are technically watching. No one's watching me do this right now, but you will see it soon. So underlining, you just do .ul, and then this is the argument. Very simple. I guess I might as well show you guys superscripts. I don't use these very often because I usually just use EQN, the math sort of thing, to basically treat it as a superscript. But the superscripts can be very useful. And basically how you do that is you just do this is text. And then to do the superscript, you do \*, and then a curly brace, and then this is super, and then curly brace. Oh wait, sorry, \* curly brace. Sorry, I don't use this very much, like I said. But now you have superscripted stuff. This can be useful for references, stuff like that. I haven't really used it very much. But yeah, and yeah, those are basically all the major things. I'm just gonna really quickly double check and see if I'm forgetting anything. Yeah, I don't think I'm forgetting anything that I planned on talking about. Really quickly, since this is the first episode of the tutorial, and I'm not perfect. Actually, sorry, I almost forgot about the titles. But let's go over the title. So .tl makes the title, so this makes the title. And then .au, hopefully I don't forget any of these while I'm live, that'd be pretty embarrassing. Gavin, that's my name. And so now I can, oh yeah, and then, so the issue is that when you start doing more than the title, it expects you to start writing. So I have to do, let's do a new heading. So .h, this is the, there we go. All right, so now we've got a title, this is a title, the author, and our first heading. So yeah, like I said before, if you don't have a heading, you'll get an error. This is basically what the error will say right down here, if you guys see it. Honestly, I just kind of have gotten used to like when this happens. It's just kind of a thing that comes to my head. But you don't even really have to have anything. You just need to let it know basically that this is the end of the title. Sorry, one last thing. This is something that I feel like a lot of people find useful. There are other ways to do similar things to this, but this is basically the simplest way to do it, and it works in all versions of Groff, or all macro sets, because it's a base Groff request. See, I've got a separate paragraph here, and I'm like, oh, I don't really want this paragraph, and like, let's just put another heading over here. So I don't really want, I'm just gonna enlarge that a bit, sorry if you guys couldn't see that earlier. I don't really want this heading, like this stuff with this stuff, right? So I want to put this on a separate page. So what I can do is I can do .bp for break page, right? And now it's on its own little page. Super useful. I use this all the time. There are other ways to do it. There's ones that are specific to some macro sets that can be useful, but I use this quite a bit. Just to kind of as a simple solution sometimes, because sometimes I'm writing and I just don't want to deal with all the extra fluff of trying to work with other things. Oh, useful ways to find out more about Groff is use the man pages are very good for Groff. Some of the macros don't really have the greatest man page, but so basically there's the base Groff macro or Groff man page. This is mostly focused on the command. There's a lot of interesting stuff you can do. You can do a lot of debugging stuff. The big ones, so you can do -wall, just like when you guys are using C with GCC, or you can do or any compiler. I think most of the main C compilers use -wall for saying all warnings are on. -b is backtrace. This isn't always super useful, but it can be useful when you're working with preprocessors. I won't get into preprocessors. I'm just going to cover this now, and then hopefully you guys will know what they are if you guys come back to it. -b is useful. Once again, -m allows us to choose our macros. -ms is how we use the ms macros, okay? That's a really important one. Let me think of the other ones. -t, like I said before. But those are the major ones. So -wall and -b I use a lot when I am debugging, okay? So anyway, so back to the man page that we were just talking about, and Groff. So how you guys can look at the base Groff requests, like I was talking about before, is you can just use the section 7, right? And then this basically gives you a huge rundown on Groff. Scroll down enough. Right here is basically all the Groff requests for it. So we have in. So here's .in, basically changes the indentation, like I was saying before. There's a lot in here. It can be very overwhelming at first. So anyway, so you've got the section 7 of Groff. You can also do basically ms, will give you all the information on the MS macros, okay? Okay, I think that's probably more than enough. I think you guys get the point. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day. Hopefully, if you guys are interested, I'll make more of these and we can get a nice good old tutorial series going.